Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Unlocking Digital Collaborations. My name is Kendall Havenstein and I'm the Smart Marketing and Operations Manager here at Smart Australia, New Zealand, and I'll be today's co-host supporting the presenters in the background. Today's presenters, we've got Nick Benoit, Manager for Enterprise and Government, Smart Australia, New Zealand, and Nicholas Miller, Principal Engineer for Polycom. We will have a quick question and answer segment at the end of the webinar where you'll be able to ask questions directly to the presenters. If you do have any questions throughout though, please feel free to pop it into the chat box and I'll be here to answer any that come through, especially any technical difficulties or any urgent questions. If you have any questions about the presentation that isn't answered straight away, that's okay. It just means that I'm saving it up till the end, or I know that the presentation, as it naturally unfolds, your question might get answered. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Nick Benoit. Thanks, Nick.
Awesome. Thanks, Kenny. Again, my name is Nick Benoit and I work with Smart Technologies. I'm presenting to you live from my office here in Melbourne. It's actually Smart's Victoria headquarters now. So thank you for taking the time out of your mornings to join us here today. So we're in fairly unprecedented times over the last 3 to 4 months. We find ourselves working remotely. We find ourselves working in these atypical scenarios of having to support business productivity, while having to work from home. What Smart wanted to do was to get our finger on the pulse of knowledge workers around the world. And we really wanted to understand, okay, what are the current meeting challenges that you have? How is COVID-19 impacting the way in which you work and the way in which you collaborate? And then from there, we also wanted to understand, what has the impact on future meeting spaces been due to these challenges that we find ourselves in? And I should have a disclaimer here. A lot of these things that we found during our survey aren't groundbreaking, but I think it'll be comforting to know that how a lot of us feel and the challenges that we've seen over the last few months really are felt with other users around the world as well. So let's jump right in. One of the things that we saw with our remote workforce is that we see up to 37% of all knowledge workers that we've surveyed find themselves in unproductive meetings. In addition to that, and perhaps a byproduct of that, is that 31% of those meeting participants have a general misunderstanding of the content that's being discussed. So let's dig a bit deeper on that. That's over 1/3 of knowledge workers that are working remotely find themselves in meetings that are not making the most of their time and find themselves having some level of miscommunication and misinformation with the content that's being shared. That's a massive, massive figure. And I think even a more staggering number associated with that is that 83% believe that this hybrid way of working is the new normal. So what is a hybrid workplace? Well, we know that the hybrid workplace moving forward is going to be a combination of having to work within the 4 walls of a conference room, but also having to collaborate remotely. So users are now forced, and organizations are now forced with this obstacle of having to put together a technology strategy that's not only has to support collaboration within your conference space, within your office room, but also supporting those remote workers as well. So when we did survey those 300 users, what did we find? Well, we found that 1/3 actually have no plan at all. We found that 1/3 are in the process of defining their plan. And we also found that 1/3 have a pretty strong plan in place. But overwhelmingly, what we did see was that 89% of all of those surveyed were fairly adamant that they are in search of technology that's going to support this new way of working and this new way of collaborating. So when we're thinking about this new criteria for meeting spaces and this new way of collaborating, what did we find were the most prevalent things that users believe are mission critical moving forward? Well, firstly, and this one here, again, it's one of those things that's not too much of a surprise for us, but they believe that it's important to accommodate modern web conferencing. And we'll unpack in the next couple slides what modern web conferencing actually looks like. But the idea is that users are expecting an audio, a video, and a content collaboration experience. Further to that, what we're seeing is about 76% of all of those that we surveyed are expecting and require a contactless environment in their conference rooms, at least in the near term, in the near future. They expect to have the ability to have a contactless meeting experience. And in addition to that, not only do they want a contactless experience, but they want that flexibility to have an interactive, true digital collaboration experience as well. And if we tie that back to those initial numbers, I believe it was 31% reported this concept of misinformation and not really understanding the content that's being discussed. A lot of that has to do with the fact that it's not a true collaboration. It's often a push of content in a really passive way, but not really engaging those remote participants. So we'll talk a little bit further around how that can evolve. And with that in mind, I'm going to jump into the Smart and Poly webinar, focusing on the Smart and Poly web conferencing, a contactless experience, as well as true digital collaboration. By the way, as my colleague Rob Mayer would tell you, I always wear a full shirt and jacket every single day to work, so I'm not just putting it on for the webinar here. Jumping right in. So Smart supports what we call an open conferencing architecture. So what do we mean by that? Well, if we're thinking about modern web conferencing today, we know that organizations may want to support both an appliance model and a BYOD model. So Smart and Poly are both designed to be platform agnostic. So if we look down here in the left-hand corner here, we actually have the ability to connect a Zoom room to our Smartboard. So if an organization has invested in Zoom, absolutely no problem. We can have a Zoom room connected to a Smartboard with a Polycom Studio USB on top that's going to support that true audio, video, and content collaboration. We have the ability to support a Teams room. Again, if an organization has invested in Teams, we have the ability to support that audio, video, and that content collaboration experience, again, in conjunction with Poly. Perhaps what's changed here, and I know you might be saying, well, Nick, a lot of displays support that, open conferencing architecture. What Smart has done here is we've now designed our solution to support the BYOD model. So no longer do organizations have to actively decide between an appliance-based model where you have a dedicated in-room solution or a BYOD model where users are coming in with their laptop and connecting. What we have the ability to do now is, if you see my slide here unfolds, a user can walk in with their laptop, connect to the Smartboard, and leveraging what we call visual input select, users can now one-touch that image and broadcast it to the entire space. Because Smart has an integrated USB bridge into all of our displays, what's happening now is the Poly Studio USB is going to lend itself to whatever input is selected. So what does this mean from a workflow perspective? As an end user, I can walk into a space at 9 o'clock and have a Teams meeting with my dedicated Teams room. At 10 o'clock, I can come in with my laptop, connect my laptop, launch a WebEx session, and be able to leverage the Poly Studio USB that's actually connected to the Smartboard. The visual input select enables us to see what inputs are connected and one touch to change, basically replicating the experience that you would get from a Crestron control or an Extron control. And again, that native USB bridge is going to auto switch that peripheral across the input. Of course, that works for both video solutions and video devices from Poly, as well as other peripherals as well. So again, if you have a wireless keyboard and mouse in that space, that will auto switch across all your peripherals again as well. So this is really designed so that the end user doesn't have to play around with cables. They don't have to unplug a cable from an appliance and plug it directly into their laptop. Users aren't getting that laptop video when they connect. Again, that's driving both usability as well as reducing the amount of day 2 support calls. So what about contactless? So this is my good friend Mustachio here. Mustachio enters the space, and you'll notice here that the board turns on. So the board actually wakens up when Mustachio walks into the space. That's a contactless way of interacting with this display. You do not have to grab a remote. You do not have to touch the board. This also reduces our carbon footprint as well. When the users exit that space, it also goes to sleep, again, supporting that carbon footprint. In addition to the proximity detection, Smart also natively supports AirPlay, Chromecast, and Miracast. The traditional way in which you would get all three of those platforms supported is you'd actually have to have a Miracast dongle, a Chromecast dongle, and perhaps an Apple TV or a third-party screen sharing protocol. We actually natively support that, so a user can walk into the room, the board turns on with proximity, we can wirelessly screen share, and from there, not only can we share locally, but we can also share that out via our conferencing platform as well. So we can share it out via Teams, Zoom, WebEx, whatever conferencing platform we may be using. But what about if we want to work more interactively and more engagingly with content? Well, we know when we talk about that figure of, that tragedy of misinformation and miscommunication, where we had over 30% of users reporting a misunderstanding of the content that's being shared. And as we move to this hybrid work model where we're going to have users both working from within the four walls of the office as well as collaborating remotely, we know that there's a critical need for users to work with the content that they know and love. We also know that corporate users, teachers, there's a very low appetite to actually learn new software applications. So the way in which we've designed our hardware and our software, if we take a look at our smartboard down here on the bottom, red pen, red writes in red ink, green writes in green ink, blue and black, and so forth. We've designed our software so that when you walk into a room and pick up a pen and launch your application, you're actually working natively within that application. If I write within a PDF, I'm saving that file natively as a PDF. If I write within a PowerPoint, same thing. I'm saving those annotations natively within that PowerPoint. So users are now focusing on the objective of their meeting as opposed to how the technology actually works. Where it's about more than just being a mouse cursor. It's about enabling, again, the end users to work really interactively in a meaningful way with the applications that they already know and love. Well, let's take that one step further and let's talk about a deeper digital collaboration. What about if an organization can't decide on a standard? What about if they have different parts of their business? One part uses Teams, another part that uses Zoom. Maybe they have their marketing team that hasn't transitioned yet and they're still using Skype for Business. Maybe they use GoToWebinars for the webinars. Smart has released a software that's known as Teamworks. It's a kiosk-based software, and it's designed to support one touch to join into any conferencing platform. So the idea being that I walk into a room, I'm presented with my calendar of the day, and I can one-touch launch, again, a Zoom meeting, a Teams meeting, a WebEx meeting, whatever is scheduled for that particular calendar slot. Of course, in conjunction with Poly Studio, then at that point, we have an immersive audio, video, and content collaboration experience. If we think about the three key components of a session, it's really about how do we enable a pain-free meeting start? How do we enable all participants to really feel like they're contributing? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here on the next slide. And the third piece is, how do we save and share our content after that session is finished? Smart Teamworks is designed to support that easy to book, easy to join in any conferencing platform, immersive audio and video and content collaboration, and then the easy meeting recap as well. So what does this do? It's presenting an environment and experience where now the remote participants are actively engaged in what's taking place at the office. Ultimately, what we're trying to do here is get to an experience where we're working just as productively remotely as if we're in the same room. And a huge part of that is the audio, the video, and the content collaboration piece. One of the things that Teamworks does is, regardless of your location, if you may be located in a boardroom at headquarters, You may be located on an iPad in the back of a taxi cab through Paris. You may be located in your home office. The idea is that regardless of where you are, regardless of the device you're on, as long as you have access to the internet, you can not only see the content that's being shared, but you can also collaborate on that content in real time as well. Again, it's supporting simultaneous collaboration, regardless of location. And not only can you ensure that everyone can contribute to that meeting, but once that meeting's finished, we can send that content out to all meeting participants. So now as a remote participant, I'm not worried about transcribing my own notes. I know that when the meeting is finished, we're going to be able to save that content and distribute it out to all participants. It's one version of the truth which helps us solidify our actions, our owners, and those timelines. But how do we manage this, right? So we know that if it's a true education-wide solution, if it's a true enterprise solution, we need to be able to manage that as well. And so Smart, with all of our products, support what's called remote management. And remote management is, again, platform agnostic and device agnostic. And it's designed so that support teams and IT professionals can actually manage that fleet of devices throughout their environments. And what does managing look like? Well, it's the ability to remote monitor the system health of those panels. It's the ability to remote administer and take over those devices. It's about being able to push out over-the-air updates to ensure that all devices have a consistent look and feel. And perhaps most importantly is it's also the ability to report utilization. And what's great here is we're actually tracking the usage of each board, of each device. Understanding how the boards get used give us the opportunity to then make strategic changes to our professional development and adoption strategy, which will hopefully increase the usage of those boards as well. And from here on, I'd like to introduce my pal, Nick Miller from Poly, and he's going to talk a little bit further about Poly in conjunction with Smart. Again, some of the latest and greatest from Poly. Over to you, Nick.
Always get caught with the mute on. Sorry about that. Thanks, Nick. As of course you've heard, we find ourselves in a bit of a new world where there is an unprecedented disruption to all of our work practices and places. In this next normal, maintaining engagement is critical. It means higher employee satisfaction, higher productivity, and lower turnover. Of course, keeping users fully engaged has always been difficult. Research shows that 1/3 of workers are always or very often distracted at the home and at the office. When a user gets off task, it can take as long as 23 minutes to get back on. That's a big impact to productivity. And of course, what about all the newly fully remote workers who might remain 100% remote or transition to be a flexible/hybrid worker as things shake out with the pandemic? It is critical that they continue to feel engaged and connected to their now very virtual teams. Remote workers have always struggled with both isolation and simply collaborating or communicating virtually, and certainly being distracted by a pandemic hasn't made anything better. Making the increased numbers of remote and hybrid workers feel connected will be central to their happiness and level of engagement, and ensuring engagement in this new work environment will be critical to ensure maximum connection between employees and virtual teams. Go ahead, Nick. Thanks. But that is, of course, no easy task, for users are themselves pretty unique. Everybody has their own requirements or desires in terms of ways they like to work and use tools. Many users move across different modalities based on their role and work arrangements as well. Perhaps starting at the desk, taking something, call somewhere else as they're picking up the kids, you name it. How do you define communication solutions that work for all those unique requirements in what is also likely a multi-vendor environment? It's trouble. I'm sure you would agree with these statistics. 84% of companies use 2 or more cloud-based video conferencing services between what they may have purchased themselves and what they use when customers or business partners schedule meetings with them. 20% report using 5 or more, which is quite a breadth. It's quite an ask, of course, and even though it may appear difficult, when companies get it right and can align the tools and endpoints with the work styles of their users and the many video conferencing platforms they may use, 68% of companies have seen increased productivity. So that's worth the effort to figure it out. Go ahead, Nick. Thank you. So Poly solutions are designed to optimize the last hop of the experience, if you will. You can have the best collaboration tools and platforms, but if your collaborators can't hear you clearly, or you can't hear them, distractions abound, engagement goes down, and productivity suffers. Poly provides consistent, high-quality audio and video experiences regardless of the conferencing vendor or Poly device involved, giving users the confidence that no matter where or how they work, they can remain focused and engaged. This simplicity and consistency of experience drives adoption of our solutions and users' productivity. Poly's innovations are experience-driven, designed to maximize the experience for the near end and the far end. With the power of Poly's noise block AI and acoustic fence technologies in our voice and video products, and the active and passive noise cancellation features of our headsets, distracting noise can be blocked out so meeting attendees can focus on the conversation instead of the distraction. Our beamforming microphones and legendary audio ensure that a consistent, high-quality audio experience is available for all participants. So Nick is going to now take us into a short demonstration video from a colleague of mine, Bob Knopf, that'll show off some of the capabilities of Poly's acoustic fence technology that enhance meeting experiences by minimizing distraction. So Nick, go right ahead.
Well, actually, this is one of the things I wanted to demonstrate for you. This is called Noise Block AI. From time to time, we have unwanted noise creep into the conference room or to your home office. It may not be a vacuum cleaner, but it could be HVAC noise. It might be emergency vehicles zipping by the window. So Poly's introduced some technology called Noise Block AI that will block that unwanted noise from getting into the call, but still allowing your voice to be transmitted clearly. So let me go ahead and activate that through the web interface. Noise Block AI is now activated. So you should hear my voice clearly, and the vacuum cleaner, that noise should have gone away almost completely. This can be used for all sorts of noises in all different types of environments. Just one of the cool features that Poly's introduced to the Studio X family and G7500. Thanks for your time today, and please visit us at poly.com.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Nick. So now let us turn our focus to video for a moment. Users should get great video performance and consistent experience in every room or home office, no matter the conferencing service being used. Accordingly, Poly solutions are designed to deliver an elevated experience with almost any conferencing service solution. It starts with intelligence in the device itself that delivers automatic speaker tracking and group framing options to ensure everyone is seen, even from the edges of the room. This increases the confidence of users that they can be seen on video without having to closely manage their endpoint. It also increases engagement for the far-end participants by delivering an experience that makes them feel as if they are part of the conversation in the room. Poly even offers a conversation mode, which simplifies the experience by framing the two active speakers in the room in a single view. In addition, Poly technology provides smooth transitions that follow the speakers and the conversation seamlessly instead of the choppy transitions that video solutions from other vendors may introduce. Now, Nick is again going to take us into a short demonstration video that'll show off Poly's newest presenter tracking technology, perfect for instructors and educators or home office users that want to get up and pace a little in a meeting. Go right ahead.
Let's take a look at the presenter tracking feature on Poly Studio. So I'm in a classroom. I have students in the class here with me and others also on the far end over video. Now, as an instructor, when I'm on video, sometimes I get concerned that I'm not being seen, either if I don't have a tracking camera in the room with me, or I'm concerned that it's tracking too slow. I might feel like I have to stay nailed down in my chair the whole time. This is the great thing about Poly Studio. I've got the freedom to know that I can get up and move around the classroom and always still be seen on video. Maybe I want to come over here and start writing on this whiteboard, or maybe I want to come over here to my interactive virtual whiteboard here, or I want to share some content. The great thing is, no matter whether I'm sharing content, I want to write on a whiteboard, or I just want to get up and pace a little bit while I'm instructing, I can be confident knowing that I'm always seen on video, always in the center of the screen at all times, and my face isn't getting lost as I'm walking around the room.
Great. Thanks, Nick. So let's turn our attention for a moment from the users in the room to those that support them. Poly's end-to-end portfolio also offers end-to-end centralized management capabilities, giving IT departments the ability to easily stage, deploy, and maintain Poly solutions. This ensures they can drive consistency in design and configuration, streamline deployment with zero-touch provisioning, and maintain and monitor equipment investments. It's simple to ensure deployed devices stay on the latest version of software or firmware and are therefore able to deliver the best experience to users while minimizing support costs. Thanks. Overall, Poly provides an end-to-end portfolio of devices to meet the needs of any work style or workspace, with the flexibility to work across a plethora of cloud-based video conferencing and voice vendors. Ultimately, this leads to the greatest possible investment protection, so when the tools change, the investment in devices, Poly and Smart, doesn't have to. And all of these solutions can be managed centrally, making them easy to deploy and support. Poly Global Services are also available to provide managed service support options that help enterprises to provide the best experience for global workforces. I'll hand it back over to you, Nick, and thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nick. One of the things I love about that acoustic wall functionality, and one of the ways in which we've seen it be successful there in conjunction with Smart is in those ad hoc huddle spaces. So a large majority of Smart's customers as well are trying to really understand and explore, well, how do we support the ad hoc collaboration space? How do we support the huddle room that traditionally aren't within the four walls of a standard conference room? So that acoustic wall capabilities with the Smart board in a common area really creates this experience where you've got the audio and the video and the content collaboration, and you don't have to worry about that adjacent noise. So I love that technology. So if you want to take this to the next level, and if you want to get your hands on a Smart board and see the Smart and Poly line in action, you can absolutely book online. And Kenny's going to put in our chat here the link to where you can book a demo. And if you're based out of New South Wales, we have the ability, or Queensland, we have the ability to do some, or WA for that matter, we have the ability to do in-person demos. If you're based out of Victoria or remotely, we also have the ability to do remote demos where we'd be happy to demonstrate, again, that overall value proposition of not only Smart, but the Smart and Poly relationship. Kenny, do we have any questions in the chat box there? Oh, you're muted. It's a classic mute move.
That's me every time. We do have a few questions, so I'll just read them out here. Does the USB bridge work with any Polycom device?
So the USB bridge works with any Poly USB enabled device. So the idea being that it actually supports any USB peripheral. So you would plug the Poly Studio USB directly into the Smart board, and then regardless of what connecting device you attached to the board as well, again, if it's a Zoom or a Teams-based appliance or a BYOD scenario where users are actually walking in with their laptops, that Poly Studio USB is going to actively switch across those inputs.
And it looks like there's one more coming through. What web conferencing platform does Teamworks work with?
Okay, cool. So Teamworks is designed to be, it's designed to work with most conferencing platforms. So we actually support 9 separate web conferencing platforms. The idea is that the room is set up itself in kiosk mode, essentially, which means the room is set up as a bookable resource, and end users can book any meeting from the Teamworks conferencing platform, and that would give them the ability to one touch to join into Zoom, Teams, WebEx, GoToMeeting, Skype for Business. Again, it's fairly agnostic when it comes to the different types of conferencing platforms that can be implemented with Smart Teamworks. And again, the value there is that as an end user, I might have a 9 o'clock meeting with WebEx, I may have a 10 o'clock with Zoom, and an 11 o'clock with Teams, and I can leverage that same software interface to one touch to join.
That seems to be it for the questions for now. Can't see any more coming through there.
Okay, perfect. Well, I just want to reiterate once more that we did go through a lot of fairly deep topics here pretty quickly around what the modern web conferencing looks like, what does contactless meeting room experience look like, what does true digital collaboration look like, and how have all of these things changed. And it's a lot of content to go over here in 30 minutes as we've done here today. And so I just want to reiterate that if you want us to dig deeper on any of these ideas, please jump online at the link that Kenny's provided there in the chat, book a demo. We can go through in detail, again, the smart solution, the poly solution, and how those two function better together. But thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Great, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Have a great day.